All right, today we're diving into a concept from ancient Chinese culture that's been, well, completely misunderstood for centuries. I'm talking about the Wu. We're going to peel back the layers here, and believe me, what we find might be way more relevant to our modern lives than you could ever imagine.
So when you hear the word Wu, what pops into your head? For a lot of us, it's probably images of shamans, mysterious rituals, maybe even witchcraft. But what if that's all just a massive oversimplification? What if we've been missing the point on something far, far more sophisticated?
Yeah, that common stereotype of witch doctors or superstitious figures is really just a shadow of the original reality. Because for thousands of years, the Wu weren't some fringe group. No way. They were at the absolute core of their society. And you can see the contrast right here. It's just night and day. On one side, you've got the stereotype, jumping gods, superstition, magic. But the ancient reality? Oh, it was something else entirely. The Wu were considered the brain of society. Can you imagine that? They were the keepers of wisdom, the coordinators of a whole community's physical and spiritual energy. I mean, they were the original Renaissance figures.
Ancient texts like the classic of Mountains and Seas talk about this mythical Ling Mountain, which was home to 10 great Wu. Now, these weren't gods you'd pray to, not at all. Think of them more like these incredibly sophisticated elites who acted as mediators. Their whole job was to interpret the patterns of the cosmos and figure out how it all connected to human life. So they were part philosopher, part scientist, and part spiritual guide, all rolled into one.
Okay, so why 10? It sounds like a specific number, right? Well, it wasn't a literal head count. In ancient Chinese thought, the number 10 is a big deal. It represents completeness, a full circle. The Tenwu symbolized a complete system for understanding the world, a holistic framework that covered every single aspect of existence, from the stars above to the dreams within.
And this breakdown really shows just how comprehensive their roles were. I mean, they were basically astronomers reading the signs of nature. They were proto-psychologists interpreting dreams. They were the first doctors mastering herbal medicine. And on top of all that, they were political advisors, setting up the rituals and social order that literally held civilization together. This wasn't just one job, it was pretty much every important job.
So that brings up a really obvious question, right? If the Wu were so central to society, why did they just fade into the background and become associated with folk magic? What happened?
Well, this timeline shows a gradual but pretty profound shift. In the earliest eras, the chief and the shaman, the king and the Wu, were literally the same person. But as states got more organized, especially around the Zhou dynasty, those roles split. The Wu became state officials, their power kind of contained. Over centuries, their different jobs were just carved up and handed off to specialists, doctors, priests, court officials. They got pushed from the very center to the margins. And this wasn't just a loss of status, it was a fundamental shift in how society viewed healing and human connection.
To really get a feel for what was lost in this transition, let's look at a simple but really powerful story that contrasts the ancient way of healing with the modern one.
Okay, so imagine a child is sick with a fever. The traditional Wu healer comes. They don't just see a symptom. They see the whole person, they see the family's anxiety, the environment. Their healing involves herbs, sure, but also chants, and most importantly, their focused presence. They're treating an imbalance in the child's entire world.
Then, a new kind of doctor arrives. They diagnose a bacterial infection and give the kid an antibiotic. The approach is precise, it's scientific, and it's incredibly effective. The fever breaks quickly. The child is, by all clinical measures, cured.
And on the surface, that is an undeniable victory for modern science. But the story asks us to just pause and consider, in our rush for these efficient, targeted solutions, was anything lost? What about that sense of connection? The treatment of the mind and spirit alongside the body? That sense that a person is more than just a collection of cells?
And here's the crucial point. The wisdom of the Wu never truly vanished. It just went underground. It became like a hidden river, a kind of cultural subconscious, just flowing beneath the surface of all the more formal systems of thought.
And you can still see its influence everywhere today. In traditional Chinese medicine, the focus on balancing qi and emotions, that's a direct echo. In Taoism, the connection to nature and use of talismans pulls right from this ancient stream. Even in modern therapy, the power of ritual and symbolism to heal the psyche is basically a rediscovery of Wu principles.
Now, it's easy to dismiss all this as just being romantic or nostalgia for a lost past. But what if this hidden river is surfacing now because we genuinely need it? What if our modern world is creating sicknesses that our purely scientific models are struggling to explain?
And this brings us right to the idea of psychosomatic illness. These are conditions where the mind and body are so intertwined that emotional stress shows up as real physical symptoms. And the key thing is, when you run the tests, the blood work, the scans, everything comes back looking perfectly normal.
Does this list look familiar at all? These are the sicknesses of our time. Widespread burnout, anxiety that has no clear cause, fatigue that sleep doesn't fix. These are precisely the kinds of imbalances where your mind, body, and spirit are out of sync that Wu culture specialized in addressing.
Now, this isn't about rejecting science. Not at all. Science is incredible at answering the question of how to live. You know, how to survive, how to fix the broken parts. But this ancient wisdom, it addresses a different but equally important question: how to live well. How to feel whole, connected, and truly alive. It's a necessary complement, not a competitor.
And that idea of a complement takes us to an even more profound insight. This choice between a purely mechanical fix and a holistic one. It isn't just about medicine. It's about the very definition of society itself. Are we building a beast culture rooted in our animal past, defined by power, competition, and just survival of the fittest? Or are we striving for a true civilization, one that's defined by empathy, that uses the language of connection and focuses on helping each other thrive together?
Ultimately, the wisdom of the Wu reminds us that civilization isn't measured by the height of our buildings or the speed of our technology. It's measured by our compassion. True progress, true healing, for an individual or for a whole society, it all begins with that simple, conscious, and deeply human choice to care. Which really makes you wonder, what does that choice look like for us today?